Good morning, everyone. It's Stefan again. It's Friday Fireside Chat, and Jack Miller's with me from, you're in Austin still, Jack, right?
Still in Austin.
Still in Austin. And we have the delightful pleasure today to have Ian Wong with us. Ian, are you up in San Francisco?
Yeah, my wife and I are in San Francisco.
And have you been quarantined there the whole time?
Yeah, we have been. A lot of folks actually have left the city. So a lot of my friends are no longer in the city, and the city feels very different. But my wife and I are still in here.
So we decided to invite Ian to join us today at the Casual Friday Fireside Chat. Ian is one of the co-founders of Opendoor and is, as CTO, one of the heavyweights and executives in the company that carries the huge responsibility of making sure that everything works from a tech point of view. And if there's anybody on our team that understands that, Jack, that's your bailiwick, right? You get the technology part better than I do.
Yeah, I've kind of probably worked. I've played with some of the toys you've made for us, Ian. I've downloaded your apps. I've gone on several unattended tours of Opendoor homes that have been on the market. As a matter of fact, the listing across the street from us, we moved last year, bought a home last year, maybe a month after we bought. The listing across the street came up. It was one of yours, and so I took that as an excuse to go kind of see what the experience was like and how you prep the home and how it's monitored and how the app works and all that. And so I was pretty impressed. I would say, and I'm an experienced person in real estate, as is Stefan, of course, but as an experienced person, it was great. I mean, it's a really very nice workflow you've built into the application and getting in and out of the house. And I got a follow-up survey and a follow-up call and kind of the things you would expect. But it felt very, very natural in terms of going and looking at a home with minimal coordination. So just good job.
I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah.
Ian, you now have been in real estate. Is it about 5 years? Did you enter around about 2014, 15, 16?
2014. It's been a little over 6 years. So my background is in tech. So I studied electrical engineering and statistics, and I'm your kind of typical geek through and through, doing math and sciences and whatnot. But my background, I love engineering. I love doing math and doing data science. And Eric is really the real estate guy. He's been doing real estate, ever since he was in college. In fact, that's how he put himself through school, which is incredible. And when I heard about the idea from Eric, I fell in love with Opendoor, and that was about 6.5 years ago. And I can talk more about that. But Eric really is a real estate guy, and I'm kind of the techie, and we joined forces to make Opendoor happen.
This real estate space is a unique one, isn't it? I mean, it's really extremely. The people themselves are lovable and adorable. They really are, and they're great people. But the industry as a collective is, I don't know, eclectic and fragmented. And sometimes when you look at it, it looks disjointed. And when you sometimes drill down, it's not quite as disjointed maybe as it really appears to be. But it is a big, messy industry. What are your thoughts now being in it for 5-6 years?
Yeah, I would say one of the North Stars we look at is the customer experience, right? At the end of the day, the entire industry is constructed to help home buyers and home shoppers, or home shoppers and homeowners rather. And if you look at the selling process for a minute, right? So if you want to sell a home, it's going to take you 90 days on average, right? It's going to involve multiple showings. And there is a 15% chance you can't even sell your home. And by the way, you have to pay, a decent fee to transact. And if you compare that transaction with almost any other transaction with any other asset class, you would say, wow, that's kind of ridiculous. That's kind of crazy, right? If I were to tell you, hey, Stefan, the only way you can sell your car is if any given weekend, someone can come in and test drive your car. It's going to take you 3 months to sell a car. You're going to have to pay a 5 to 6% fee. And there's a 1 in 7 chance you can't even sell your car. And you need to sell your car in order to buy your next car. You'd be like, that's crazy. But as a society, we're like, that's just how it is for real estate. Why? It's expensive. But that's not really a good reason. And if you really peel back the layers of the onion, you're like, well, why are we doing things this way? And one of the thesis for Opendoor and why I got really excited about the space is there isn't a reason why the customer experience is so fragmented or so unsatisfying. Like, how could we actually create many more options for sellers and buyers to participate in this transaction because, look, it's a really meaningful transaction. Home ownership is extremely meaningful for many people, and we should make it more accessible.
Yeah.
Well, I think you guys are solving a legitimate problem. I mean, it's one of the reasons why. I mean, I know Stefan, we've written about the Opendoor and iBuyers. When did we write our first report on them? It was in the 2016 trends report, maybe. I mean, it's been.
Yeah, we've covered the topic. I didn't count, Jack, but I think we've covered the topic, maybe a half a dozen times. And when we cover a topic, it's that 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 kind of word stuff. It's usually a 3-month piece of work when we do it. But yeah, I think we covered it last year, but I think we're going back. We've covered it probably 3 years before that and 3 years before that. And
yeah, it's been we've written about because it really is. It's a problem that's endemic in the industry in terms of people deciding not to buy because they know they're going to have a hard time selling, or they're not confident in the sale, or they're worried if they do sell, they won't be able to buy. So it's a real issue that I think impacts the market pretty broadly.
I've come down a little bit on the other side. I'm not quite sure that it solves a problem per se, but what I do absolutely agree with is that it is a potentially significantly better experience. It's an enhancement of the experience. And because I said, why I'm saying not problem is because, it does happen at the moment. It does work. It does transact. And the majority of people that buy homes and sell homes are happy. Now, it is true, like Ian said, maybe they don't know what to compare it with, and maybe they're accepting the norm because the norm has become the norm. But I think it's, when you get that Disney experience, when you come, I know that I was looking at one of your previous articles, Ian, and you were referring to, let me see, I jotted it down here because I knew I was going to forget about it. Where did I jot it down? Alan Key, was that right? You said a change of perspective is worth 80 points of IQ, or he said that.
Yeah, he said that.
He said that. And I thought that is very, very astute, right? So what Opendoor has done is they are claimed to be brilliant, but half of their brilliance comes from the fact that they're simply approaching the problem from a totally different solution, right? From a totally different angle. And it's that uniqueness of the angle, which maybe Opendoor didn't even figure all the stuff out, probably didn't figure it all out.
No, not in the early days.
Yeah, not in the early days. But as they got into it, more and more different mindsets of thinking approached, and you could see something from a totally different angle. You say, oh, wow, if we could do that, we can maybe do this too, and this too, and this too. So what's been some of the big ahas since you guys launched?
Yeah, for sure. I would say, I think we got to start with the customers, right? Like so much of what we do in the company is working backwards with the customer experience and ultimately the people that we're actually working for. And so I remember actually one of the guiding lights, I'll give you maybe one example. And there's this woman in Raleigh that we were trying to help. And she was trying to sell her home in Raleigh and move to Charlotte. And we, as part of our process, we talked to the customer, obviously, and try to understand her situation. Turned out this woman has an elderly mother that she is taking care of in Charlotte, and it's very, very difficult to accommodate open houses. And she actually found a job at the Bank of America in Charlotte, and she really wanted to move to Charlotte to pursue her work. But because of her situation, it was very difficult for her to buy a place in Charlotte, move, and first sell her place in Raleigh to be able to do all that. And so she was commuting, 3 to 5 hours, multiple times a week to just make ends meet, which is just incredible. When she came to Opendoor, literally the words were like, wow, this is amazing because, hey, I can just sell my home on my own terms. I don't have to do showings because my elderly mother lives with me and I need to take care of her. And the only thing that could be better is if we can just buy a home in Charlotte and, if there's a button I could press where a moving truck shows up and everything is just transported for her. And so that has been one of the biggest aha, which is, wow, this is like a really big need. There's actually a lot of untapped demand and actually unserved homeowners and home shoppers that have been looking for different ways to buy and sell homes. So that's really inspired how we think about convenience on the seller side, how we thought about trade-ins for enabling buyers and sellers to do both at the same time. We have a program called Home Reserve to do that. And also, how do we help people shop for homes? And so, Jack, you were talking about the virtual touring experience. How do we give people more capability to do things on their own timeline versus needing to schedule an open house, and getting through all those hurdles in order just to visit a place. So there's been, I would say that's like the biggest aha moment when you talk to a customer and see how your product resonates with them. And then that just, creates all sorts of ideas as to what, ways you can improve your products.
So one of the questions we got online, which I was just looking at quickly, could you help answer this guy? And I'll give you the question, you don't have to look it up, by explaining in a short, I don't know, 1 minute, 2 minute, not a long story. Give us the high level of how the iBuyer or the Opendoor concept actually works. This request came from George, said, I've seen it, I've read about it, I've heard about it, but just give me a high level, how does it actually work?
Sure, yeah, it's good to start with what does Opendoor even do? So the idea behind the iBuying business, or Opendoor.com, now we have multiple products, but where we started is something that's commonly referred to as iBuyer now, which if you're a homeowner and you want to sell your home, what you can do is come to Opendoor.com, submit your address, fill out information, takes you maybe 5-10 minutes, and then we'll actually come back within the same day with an offer for your home, and we'll actually buy the home from you. So we'll actually put up the capital to buy your home, and basically you can choose your move out date whenever you up to a month from when we make the offer. So that really unlocks financing contingencies. It just gives you this immediate liquidity, kind of like pulling money from your checking account, right? It's as seamless as that.
Okay, great. So I remember at the last T3 Summit, which I know you guys couldn't attend. You actually had an event. I think Eric told me he had an event, which unfortunately was roughly the same time. But we had some discussion on stage with a number of people, and one of the questions which popped up a few times, and I don't think, Jack, if you remember, I don't think anybody really had the answer. We were all trying to find the ceiling and the foundation. But the question that came at the summit, Ian, was roughly what percentage of the market, and we understand that it differs from high end and luxury and low end and different states, but what size of the market do you think a iBuyer concept could satisfy or could work with? Or obviously you're not going to make an offer to every single seller out there. I mean, there are going to be many types of real estate, maybe highly priced market, or maybe unique properties, which you might say, well, I don't want to make an offer on that because that won't turn around quickly enough. Do you have any feeling for how big you think the market size of an iBuyer concept is? Not necessarily Opendoor.
Yeah, I would say, generally speaking, if you think about what the iBuying business represents, it's really convenience and certainty, right? And today the fee points are a little bit more expensive, right? So traditionally it's about 6%. With iBuyers, it's anywhere, on average, about 7.5%. So it's a little bit more expensive. So I think the question is, are folks willing to trade in a bit of, give up a bit of certainty for maybe exploring the markets, right? Or are they willing to actually pay for convenience? And that fee isn't actually that high, especially if you consider the time cost of money, like your own time and your own investment in repairing your home and all that sort of, all the hidden expenses associated with selling a home.
Mm-hmm.
So
absolutely.
I think that the potential is actually very high. Most iBuyers, the buy box, we call it, like basically the serviceable segment, to your point, Stefan, is anywhere from call it like 100K to 600 or 700K, right? So I think it's very difficult to deal with distress for its own reasons, and very difficult to deal with luxury for their own sets of reasons. Mm-hmm. But pretty much like anywhere in between, I think, for the question is what fraction of the population really crave liquidity and certainty, and it can expand to as much as that population, the size of that population.
Yeah, well, I agree with that discussion. It's like who's willing to pay the extra $15 or $20 for the Southwest Airlines Line A, right? who wants to walk on first? So who would pay the extra $1 for the Uber Eats to come and deliver to my office instead of me getting in a car and driving to go fetch it?
Right, and on top of that, I think one of the really important things that these types of businesses enable is unlocking, say, financing contingencies, right? So a lot of people want to avoid the double move, and actually the cost of incurring that double move, or the cost of not being able to get that next dream home, actually is worth a lot more then that incremental cost, like whatever, like, you know, that amount of money. And by the way, that incremental costs over time, as the industry gets more efficient, might also, that gap might compress over time too. So there are a couple of dynamics at play where I think the audience size will get bigger over time.
Yep, agree. Jack, thoughts?
I think he did a very nice job of not giving us a percentage, but I respect that. I totally respect that. So yeah, I mean, I am interested to hear the numbers that you quoted, the kind of what a normal transaction costs versus, and then really looking at the total cost of the move versus. I think people get very myopic about, well, what does it cost you to sell the home? But there's all these other costs around it when you're having to move, when you have to move twice, when you have to put things into storage, when you have to pay 2 movers instead of 1 mover. So that's a little bit broadening. It's the perspective that we talked about, where you come at it from a different perspective of what are these lifestyle changes and transitions that people go through? What's the total cost of that? Not just how much did you pay an agent to put your home and list it and do all the things, but you know, this transition period, you're going to spend a bunch of money, and it may be more efficient to spend some of it packaged so you don't have to move twice or have to make accommodations. I think that's a novel perspective that you guys bring.
Yeah, I think the real estate transaction, I mean, I have now moved, I don't know, 3 or 4 times in the last 4 or 5 years as I've acquired a second property or moved to a property. And I don't want to say it's the luck of the draw, but some of the transactions go super smooth.
Yeah, some of them do.
Damn, some are messy, right? For whatever reason, a multitude of reasons, and sometimes with all good intentions. Something just triggers it, and it's a week later, it's a week earlier, you don't get the loan, you get the loan with conditions, it's delayed, the inspector doesn't come around, something has to be changed. And before you know it, there can be that cascading effect, and you can go like, oh, damn it, really? This has to happen?
You know, a lot of how I think about the space and where things are trending is kind of like, you know, back in the day, we had these, what is it, the carbon copy credit card machines where like credit card and you go chunk, you know, and then you copy the thing and you like mail it out and hopefully the payment's received, right? You know, and similar with like ATMs, like you have to line up an ATM and get money, or even like as a merchant, so if you want to accept credit card payment, you have to apply and you get this like really chunky terminal, right, from like wherever, and you know, it doesn't work half the time. And what technology is able to do is to say, hey, all these things could be like improved 100 times. We can make things a lot more seamless, as opposed to mailing, you know, this credit card thing, or, you know, taking payments on this like chunky terminal. I should be able to just tap, you know, a button on my phone and send you that money. Or better yet, I have a QR code, you scan it, I can just pay you right away. And that then actually accelerates the velocity of payments and actually like increase the rate of economic development, you know, across the country, across the world. So the question is, if you can actually reduce the friction of buying and selling and moving in general, you know, what is going to be the net effect of that in society, and how is that going to change people's imagination of what is possible? Because if it's no longer a liability, if I'm not like, wow, I have to sell my home, it's going to be such a big pain in the butt, but I can say, hey, this is an asset I've built up and I can transact whenever I want. Maybe that actually changes people's perspective as to, you know, what does retirement look like? You know, maybe it's very easy for me to, you know, move and, you know, pursue that next job, or, you know, move for my family to have a better school district or what have you. So, you know, I think that's one of the things that I think is a societal trend that Opendoor is a part of.
So if you're the brains behind Opendoor, because you said Eric's the industry guy, so he's the front guy. He's got my job, but Jack's the brains, right? So if you're the brains on that side, I mean, one of the hard things would be, I know when Jack and I have tried to create a index or an algorithm or a formula, you know, you've got so many damn variables and it's so complicated. And even when the banks try to create AVMs for the mortgages, what do you put into consideration? What do you take into consideration? What's in, what's out? How do you weight all this stuff? How do you come up with an offer?
Yeah, it's a very hard question. And this is something that we've spent 6 years on so far, and we'll likely spend the next 60 years on, if not longer. And the reality is, look, housing is a very bespoke asset class, right? It's every home is different. Every homeowner is different, treats their home differently. So it's very heterogeneous. At the same time, you know, it's important to use algorithms because it's more scalable and more consistent. You know, back in the day when people were applying for loans, you know, it was completely subjected to a loan officer and had different underwriting standards, and everyone was different. And technology and math and data were able to bring in a level of consistency and standardization across how people were issued loans. So in the same way for housing, our approach has been basically a man-machine hybrid, right? Which is, let's use machines and algorithms to be consistent, because what machines are good at is assessing millions of variables about a home, like within a fraction of a second, right? And being able to tease out the relationship between, how marble countertop and like stainless steel appliances would add together to add value to your home. Those relationships, machines are perfectly capable of learning. Now, what's hard are things like, well, is there something weird about the home? Like, is there something it's a foundation cracked? Is there a power line running through the backyard? Is the house painted in like 3 different colors, right? These are the types of signals and inputs are very, very hard actually for computers to realize or comprehend. So our approach has always been, how do we leverage the best of machines, which is consistency, accuracy, once given the right inputs, and then how do we use our expert operators in-house to provide provide the algorithms with some of those really valuable inputs so that we can get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, very tricky, right? Very tricky. So machine learning and artificial intelligence integrated with human experience and knowledge together.
Exactly.
To try and get you a better answer quicker, faster.
Yeah, and more consistent and more accurate.
More consistent, yeah, more consistent.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, honestly, like machines or humans, these are in many ways kind of like implementation techniques, right? Details. What matters at the end of the day is like, are we presenting a fair market value to our customer? And at the end of the day, we're in many ways playing a repeated game with the market. We don't want to lowball because that creates a perception. Obviously, on the other hand, if we overpay, then we won't be in business for very long. So we're constantly trying to make sure that we are able to do what's fair for both buyers and the sellers.
How long do you see Opendoor holding on to a house, generally speaking? What's the goal or the motive or the average?
Yeah, our average tracks the market average. So that could be 90 days for most markets, but it's roughly in line with the market averages.
I know Jack and I were talking earlier, and our executive editor of our trends report, which reads all of our trends reports and copy edits everything, he was asking a question. Jack and I were talking about, has COVID changed anything in the iBuyer model, do you think? Have you learned anything from the fact that less people now came? And in some cases, I know you guys didn't close operations, of course, but you sort of shuttered the actual physical visiting of open houses for obvious reasons because of COVID-19. And now most people are opening restaurants again. And so shops like iBuyers are slowly coming back to the market. Have you learned anything in the process that you're going to carry forward?
Yeah, totally. There's so many learnings from COVID. I feel like COVID just create this big freeze on the entire economy, and everyone has had to adapt. And from our perspective, obviously the real estate market in general was very uncertain, very just volatile when COVID landed around early March. There was a lot of questions as to public health, the economy, real estate at large. And for us at Opendoor, what we were really concerned with was actually A, the safety of our customers and the teammates, and B, like how we can operate, because there are counties where the offices were closed and you literally cannot transact if you wanted to. So there are basically a lot of logistical challenges. And what we've done, and I think what we've seen, not just at Opendoor, but across industries, there's been an acceleration of a lot of trends, right? So what we've seen is, for at least Opendoor, and I'm sure a lot of other companies in the iBuyer space, our supply chain, right? How from a seller requesting an offer to getting the money, now it's fully digitized. So we don't, before we're gated on, say, an in-person inspection, and with COVID, we can't send someone into someone's home, while complying with public safety guidelines. We were able to do virtualized assessments, right? So we've digitized that. We had to send notaries. Now we do an e-notary. So we've basically taken all these pieces that were dependent on an offline process and turned them online. Similarly, I think one of the biggest learnings for us, and I think it's a trend to stay, is safety. People really, really, really care about safety now. And so sellers, they don't want strangers coming to their home. And buyers, like Jack, you might want to have assurance that you're the only visitor in that open house. So one of the things that we've done is actually in our app now, you can schedule a 30-minute slot where because of the sensors and all the things we install at home, right, we know that you're the only person there and you can reserve that ahead of time. But so those are some of the things that I think are trends that will stay with us for a while.
Yeah, Jack, you got another 1 or 2 questions because Ian told us that he has a big Opendoor event that he has to get to at 11:30. So we want to respect that and stay on time. We've got about another 4 or so 5 minutes. You have another 1 or 2 questions you'd like to pop over to?
Well, I have some forward-looking questions which you may or may not be able to answer, but we're curious. Like you're in, I don't know, 25 markets in the U.S. today. Are you looking to kind of capitalize on the markets you're in? Or are you expanding into other markets? What is the future? What does the rest of the year, maybe next couple of years, look like for Opendoor? Where are you guys headed?
Yeah, definitely. So a couple of key things we're doing. We are launching a lot more products, actually. So one of the things that we've heard a lot from our customers, we started with this iBuyer space, and that's what Opendoor is known for. But really, our end goal is to make buying and selling much better. So while we started with iBuyer, we want to actually be a one-stop shop for both buying and selling and moving in generally, and over time, maybe even living. So for the seller side, it's not just sell to Opendoor. There's list with Opendoor. There's home reserve. For the buyer side, we've actually done a lot of products to help people buy homes, tour homes faster and better. We've added financing, actually, Opendoor home loans that allows you to actually buy the home in one seamless transaction, financing included. So our goal for the next year and a half or more is really going deep and making sure it's a one-stop shop for all things buying and selling. And today we're in 21 markets. We've relaunched 7 since COVID happened, and we are going to increase back up to that 21 over the coming months. But our goal is going to be go deep with our product suite and probably expand to a few more markets, at least in this country, in the coming year or 2.
That's great.
What's your overall feeling about the return of the real estate market? Are we gonna feel we're gonna have a good Q3, a good Q4, or do you think this? I don't want to throw the protests in there as well, but because I mean this is a tough year, right? It's COVID, and then we've had the Black Lives Matter or the protests, and we still got an election year. I mean, this is a complicated year.
It's complicated. I mean, Jack and Stefan, you guys are the experts, so your guess is as good as mine. But from where I sit, one of the things that was stark was March. Wow, like visits dropped, like massive, right? So we saw demand across at least the markets that we're in drop by 50 to 70%. But since then, like things have and these are like market visits data. It's not just Opendoor. You must have seen the Open Table, not to be confused with Opendoor, Open Table restaurant data, and that was just a sea of red, right? And but since then, stock market's an all-time high. Homes are clearing faster than ever before. List prices are at all-time highs again. I think the real question is how much of that is pent-up demand, or was there a secular change in that A, interest rates are lower than ever before, and B, the value of a home might actually be worth more because people are spending more time indoors, and C, there's actually maybe a migration from the urban core to more of the suburbs, and that might actually benefit a lot of the markets that are not San Francisco or New York or Seattle. But to your point, we got an election, we've got a lot of societal issues that society is dealing with right now, and unfortunately, we think there's going to be a resurgence of COVID in the fall, right? And is there going to be a collective will to go on lockdown again, or what is people's preparedness or willingness to tolerate those measures? So I think there are so many different questions in the fall, and it's hard to tell.
I think that's a spot on answer. We actually think that the real estate market is holding up especially well despite all of the complications and things that are thrown at it. And none of the problems or the challenges that real estate has it's not fundamentally real estate's problems, right? It is periphery and other related, whether it's political or health or safety or racial, and they're all critically important issues. And because real estate, at 8% of the country's GDP, we basically touch everything. So if anything happens anywhere in the country, real estate is going to feel that. And well, it was super duper. Thank you for your time. I know that you're on a tight timeline today. We appreciate that you were able to squeeze us in and join us. We appreciate that very much. And we look forward to another opportunity to talk to you guys. And good luck with the opening of all of your other stores.
Well, thank you so much, Stefan and Jack. It was a pleasure to see you guys, and hopefully we'll have a chance to catch up in the future.
All right. Take care, Ian. All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Ian. Take
Bye.
care.